oh, it's the black man's fault that he's in the position. Well, what about black on black crime? I mean, it goes on and on and on. You know, I mean, I could sit here all day and give you examples. All lives matter. I mean, it just goes on all day. Black people ask for justice. White people find a way to try to obscure it, to try to take away from it, to try to demean it. We are colonizers. And I say that based on our behavior, collectively as white people. And until we stop being gaslighters and colonizers, white people are on a path of self-destruction. White supremacy, the lies of white supremacy, the colonizing mentality has never brought the white man happiness, and it never will. It's toxic, dysfunctional, and self-defeating. And it's not helping us. And now there's all this white rage because when the abuser loses control, he gets angry. And then Trump was born because we had a black president. And he was perfect because he was racist. And that's what white America wanted, because they're angry, because they felt like they were losing control. As colonizers have to have control, and we had a black president. And everybody just shit all over themselves. White people just freak the fuck out. Oh my God, we're losing control. We have a black president. He's going to oppress us and enslave us. God knows we're going to be whipped and lynched. This is literally, I think, some of the thoughts, the subconscious. I'm exaggerating, but in a way it's true. The greatest fear of the colonizer is all that evil, vile shit that we did will be done up unto them, us. That's why there's so much white rage. The numbers are changing. Pretty soon, white people will not be the majority. The abuser loses control. So what do? We continue gaslighting. We continue with white rage. White domestic terrorism on the rise. The greatest threat in America. White people are enraged because they can no longer control their victims, black and brown people, the way that they want to. They're losing some of their power, some of their positions, some of their privilege. They feel threatened. So here we are, in a state of crazy, utter chaos. That's why I say the lies of white supremacy is our destruction.
Have you noticed how silence can be louder than rage? How the absence of noise can rattle a room more than shouting ever could? Right now, across America, something powerful is happening, and it's not being screamed about in the streets or plastered about in the headlines. No, it's quiet. It's the silence of Black Americans. Not because they have given up, but because they have woken up. They are no longer explaining, begging, or fighting with the same rage that's been forced on them for centuries. And that silence is louder than ever. It's starting to echo through the halls of power, the history books, and the generations of white guilt. Today we are diving into why that silence from Black Americans is shaking the foundations of white America, and why the tables might be turning. I'm your presenter, Joel Mugisha. If you're new, kindly consider subscribing, like this video, and keep the conversation going in the comment section below. Let's talk about it.
White people, watch this video, and I'll be right back.
Today, it's been on my mind is the amount of trauma that our culture creates and recreates and recreates and recreates. And I just think about it, right? In order for us to be in this state where we're always in competition, stemming from this Greco-Roman European construct that there's not enough resources on the planet, so we're always in competition. And in order to be in competition, I need to create an enemy, even when there is none. So black folks have always been our enemy, because they are the ones that understand the abundance of life. They live a village to raise a child. That is a sharing community full of love and enjoyment, and we didn't have that. We don't have that connection coming from where we come from. That's sad, but because of it, we feel traumatized. We're weaponized in our trauma to hate somebody, to see somebody else's success as an enemy to us, to see someone else living in a land that has resources that we seek as an enemy to us. We create that enemy. We don't have to be enemies with black folks. They have shown us love and are waiting to show us more love when we finally stop this mental trauma game of thinking we're in competition and they are our enemy. And we do it with brown folks, right? We do it with indigenous cultures and aboriginal cultures all over the planet. Wherever we have gone, we have caused harm instead of appreciated the love that we were shown. And that's a trauma brain response. So when I speak about the need for repairing the harm that we have caused others, it is also so that we can learn our own humanity and break down and tear down these walls of our own trauma-brained response as white folks. And no, I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for us.
Like I've been saying on my page for the last 5 years, when you dehumanize someone, you lose your humanity. And that's what happened to the white community. They are so used to dehumanizing people. They were taught to dehumanize people by their elders and ancestors that they have lost their humanity. And for you to gain your humanity back, you're going to have to deconstruct the indoctrination that was given to you by the rich white folks, the oligarchs, the billionaire class, whatever the fuck you want to call them. You got to deconstruct that, and you have to repair the harm that your community has done to the entire world's population. The problems that we have in the world do not come from black people or people of color or indigenous people. It comes from y'all community. 7 to 10% of the world population is white, yet you guys cause 98% of the harm that is going on in the world. When you dehumanize people, you yourself lose your humanity. And that is just a fact. Remember, diversity, equal power. We can change the world when we work together and protect black women. Until next time, sometimes you gotta hear it from someone that looks like you.
Y'all are so blinded by hate. Let me tell you how racism is going to keep the middle class stuck. America has a long, ugly history of people hating black and brown folks, so much so that they're willing to vote against their own survival just to keep their own racist ideologies alive. Time and time again, working class white Americans have been tricked into supporting policies that make them poorer, sicker, and more desperate, all because those in power tell them that they're going to punish black people and immigrants and other marginalized groups. Donald Trump's tax plan is the latest proof of this self-destructive cycle. His policies will hurt 95% of Americans, especially working class white Americans who make up a large percentage of his base, but yet they will still support him. Why? Because his campaign fuels their hate, distracting them from the fact that they too are being robbed. They are so determined to see black people struggle, so obsessed with upholding white supremacy that they will literally vote to make themselves poor if it means keeping the lie alive. Meanwhile, the ultra-rich, who don't care about race at all, just about staying rich and in power, laugh as they continue to collect wealth off the backs of struggling Americans. Trump's tax plan is not just about economics. It's a weapon of mass distraction, designed to use racism as a smokescreen while the rich steal from the poor. This isn't anything new. It's the same trick used throughout history. From the days of slavery, when rich plantation owners convinced poor whites to fight for a system that oppressed them too, to Jim Crow laws, to today's voter suppression and economic exploitation. The question I have is, when will people wake up? How much suffering will it take for them to see that the real enemy isn't black and brown people? It's the billionaires and the politicians robbing them blind while feeding them lies. This is the truth that racists don't want to admit. The very policies they think will hurt black and brown folks will hurt them first. And when they find out that they've been used as pawns in a game that's designed to keep them struggling, it may be too late.
I'm going to step on a bunch of people's feet when I say this. You are not being discriminated against just because you are not centered in the story. I need people to marinate in that, sit with that. You are not being oppressed by other people talking about various histories or focusing on various literature. None of those things are directly harmful to you. The way some folks will literally try to spin it as if talking about, let's take an example, if talking about Black history is harmful to them somehow. They never prove it. They never have any tangible examples of the actual harm of discussing Black history. It's all based upon people's feelings, which if we're basing things upon people's feelings, there's a whole group of Black people who would love to talk about our feelings about things. Our feelings are never considered in these conversations, but the idea that it is oppressive to certain groups of folks to learn Black history is wild, that is somehow harmful and detrimental to these folks to learn actual history, things that have actually happened, as opposed to those things that actually happened, is wild. It shows me that y'all have never truly been oppressed because of your color of your skin. Like, y'all have never experienced that. When I'm having these discussions here on this forum and folks come on and they leave their comments, when I ask them for examples of how this is oppressive to them, you know what some of those comments are? Black history section at the bookstore. Netflix having a whole black section. The black hair care aisle. Do y'all see how that's like wild? That other people simply existing, simply talking about existing, or in the case of the hair care aisle, simply caring for our bodies is somehow oppressive to folks who are so used to being centered that they lose their marbles when they hear or learn or are confronted with the idea that other people exist in this world and may want a little scalp moisturizer or may want to read a book that talks about our experiences, or may want to watch a love story that features black love. That's the worst you gotta deal with? The idea that other people simply exist? That's the worst you have to deal with? Also, let me say this, because y'all think that everything black people do is cool without giving black people credit for it. Oppression is not fun. Being oppressed is not cute. Being harmed in so many different ways just because of the people that you come from is literally not fun. And I don't know why so many people want to be oppressed. I mean, outside of the fact that y'all think that everything black people do is cool. I mean, a bunch of y'all walk around with do-rags right now trying to get waves, and I'm like, baby, you enjoy those cornfield looking locks. Like, that's fine. Baby, y'all don't even know what this stuff is for. A bunch of y'all were throwing oil in your hair and like y'all didn't know what that stuff was for. Like, it's weird, it's strange, it's odd, it's getting strange. It's okay if you're not centered in the story. It's okay. Other people exist. Other people could tell their perspectives. Other people matter too. Like, wasn't that y'all big thing that all lives matter? Isn't this a prime example of that? Breathe. It's okay. Other people exist. You'll be fine. You'll survive.
You know, Republican voters love to say, Donald Trump is your president. Why can't you accept it? Donald Trump is your president. You need to get over it. But I hope you guys know, for most of us, we have accepted it. We understand he is the president. Some of us think the way he became president is a little shaky. Probably needs to have some extra eyes look into that. But at the end of the day, we know he's in the Oval Office. The problem is, it does not stop there, okay? It's never supposed to stop there. See, when you guys vote, and your leadership understands this, your representatives understand this, when you guys vote, you think voting that person in means you send them to Washington, and then they wave a magic wand, and they fix all of your problems. You think, I voted for Donald Trump, he won. Now, just by him being there, everything that I was concerned with before he became president is going to change. What do I have to follow up with him about? He's there, he's gonna do it. But ladies and gentlemen, this is not Hogwarts, okay? This is not the Ministry of Magic. He's not showing up there and saying a spell or two, and you have lower grocery prices. You have more affordable health care. You have all the things that are currently making your life more difficult fixed. No, those changes take actual work, okay? They take negotiation. They take litigation. They take all of the pressure that comes from the people in order for our congressmen, our senators, and the president himself to act in our best interests, not in their own. It's funny you guys say you don't like socialism, but you seem to love the idea of the government taking care of all your problems once you get the people in there that you like. I'm very sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that is not our reality, okay? We absolutely need to keep questioning what these people do every single day. The pressure people have been putting on these senators, the pressure people have been putting on this congressman is why they are telling the muskrat that he can no longer act with unilateral power. I bet you if we weren't constantly asking, what does he do? Why is he doing it? How does he have the power to do it? Isn't this constitutional or unconstitutional? I bet you if those lawsuits weren't getting filed and those judges weren't looking into these cases because of the people constantly asking questions, we would not have seen any change on that matter. This is why the American people cannot just accept that he's president, go home, and not ask questions. That's how we got here to begin with. So instead of focusing on all of us complaining, I'm telling you right now, you guys need to be complaining a lot more.
It's obvious that many of you do not understand what restorative justice is. Restorative justice is compassion. Restorative justice is compassion for the victim first, for community, and it is also compassion for the offender. Restorative justice gives the victims an opportunity to be heard by community, by the offender. It gives victims the opportunity to say, this is what happened to me, this is what you did to me, and this is how it affected my life. Restorative justice gives victims a feeling of safety amongst the masses. It lets them know they are not alone. It validates the harm that has been caused to the victims and reminds victims that they have an entire community that loves and cares for them. Restorative justice is compassion for community because it brings community in to be witnesses, not mediators, but witnesses to a process in which our community restores order and brings the fold back together. Restorative justice is compassion for the community because it shows community that there is accountability here for each and every one of us, whichever side of accountability we stand on, whether we are being held accountable or the offender is being held accountable for the crimes they have committed against us. Restorative justice is compassion for the offender because what is the alternative? Lock them up and throw away the fucking key? Just discard them like they're trash? No. Restorative justice gives Shaheem the opportunity to hear what they've done wrong and come up with a plan with community to not re-offend anyone in community. Restorative justice gives Shaheem the opportunity to right their wrongs and come back home, to not be ostracized, to not be left without a people. And unfortunately, we don't practice restorative justice in our community. We fall back on the white man's idea of justice for Black lives, and that is just fucking punitive. In order for restorative justice to happen, Shaheem has got to be willing to come to the table. And these victims of Shaheem's have tried many times to communicate with Shaheem, but Shaheem does not value the lives of their victims. What Shaheem does is offends and then blocks, like the victims never even existed and certainly do not matter. And after Shaheem blocks their victims, then his flying fucking monkeys swarm their victims and makes the situation that much worse. Our community deserves better than that. And none of us are above accountability. I'm not trying to throw Shaheem away, but Shaheem has resisted the call-in one after another, and this has gotten bigger and bigger because the body count of victims continues to grow. And this community has to put a stop to it because Shaheem has a type, and I happen to be Shaheem's type of victim. And if I don't stop it from happening to someone else, I could be next. You could be next. And that fear right there is what destabilizes and disconnects our community. Restorative justice is in order, so we can protect, care for, and clean our own communities without outside interference. And if you have a problem with people being doxxed, so do I. That's one of the things that we need to be talking to Shaheem about. If you have a problem with people calling Shaheem's job, Shaheem is a fucking therapist. And there is a level of accountability in that profession to do no harm. And you should also consider if Shaheem had respected their victims enough to actually sit down at the table and discuss the harm that they have caused in community, those victims would not now be seeking other alternatives for justice. Restorative justice is in order, and you've not seen it practiced very often, but that doesn't mean that this isn't it. That doesn't mean that this isn't it. You just don't like it because Shaheem is your problematic fucking fave.
Alright everybody, there you have it. Actually, as we have seen in the videos that I have compiled for you, Black Americans are choosing to keep silence instead of being aggressive or being loud as it was expected from them. And a lot of them are shifting gears. A lot of them are changing the way, they used to react to basically pump people's aggression. And they're choosing silence instead of aggression. They're choosing to be less vocal instead of being loud. And this shift in perspective is making, white folks uncomfortable. This shift in mentality is making a lot of, white people uncomfortable because they do not know how to handle this. Because, we all know that the systems were meant and designed for Black folks to either resist or submit. Now, when they choose to be silent, this is a different case because for centuries, Black Americans have been told how to feel. When they get angry, they're called aggressive. When they cry, they're playing victims. And when they stay calm, they're cold. Now, every emotional response that, they give is actually met with something else, something to look down on them, something to put them down, something to make them feel as if they're not themselves, as if they're less than other people, especially palm-colored people. And now they've actually learned the power of silence. When you stop reacting to the way that they expect you to do, when you don't yell, don't explain, and don't perform, they don't know what to do with that because, the game was never designed for that. It was never designed for quiet. It was never designed for a self-assured Black voice. It was designed for submission. It was designed for resistance. Then silence, when Black people actually choose to be silenced, then that actually disrupts the narratives. It disrupts the narrative that they want to box Black people and Black folks in. We all know that they want to make us appear as the loudest, as the most aggressive, as the people without self-control, as the people with the most homicide, as the people who are dangerous. When black folks now choose to be silent, this is a shift in narratives. They actually don't know what to do with that because they expect you to respond. Actually, they expect you to react, not respond. Because what black people are actually doing right now, they are responding, not reacting emotionally. They are responding rationally by thinking. Now, this is making a lot of white folks uncomfortable. It's making a lot of palm-colored people to feel uncomfortable because they don't know how to deal with you when you are not reacting as you used to be, because that is what they want. That is what they want because they keep on feeding on your emotional trauma. They keep on feeding on your insecurities. They keep on feeding on your mental trauma. But now, you know, the mentality is shifting. The tables are turning. It is now them that are feeling the weight of centuries of historical trauma and oppression that they did on black folks, actually crashing on them. Because when black people decide to be silent, when they decide actually to respond with silence, it is making them feel the weight of what they have done to, you know, the people of color. You know, it's actually strange because they never expected black folks to act this way. You know, all they want is control and power. But black folks all over the world have always had, you know, that community in them, that sense of humanity in them, that sense of courtesy. That is why they came to Africa and they were shown courtesy. But what did they do back? You know, they became jealous of the resources that the continent had. They became jealous of the ease of availability of food that the continent of Africa had. Now, they made us to be the enemy. They make everything that has something that they need to be the enemy, just like we have seen in the videos as the people were actually explaining. What do you think, guys? What do you think about this new shift in mentality from black folks actually choosing to respond with silence when they're being attacked, when they're being, you know, triggered, instead of becoming aggressive like they used to be, instead of reacting like they used to be, instead of, you know, going out there and becoming aggressive or submitting? Now they're actually lacking what to do with black folks. We all remember how they were trying to trigger black folks to go into the streets, into protests, but black people actually, you know, made a movement. They decided to stay home. They said this fight is not ours anymore. This is not how we fight anymore. We don't go to the streets, because when we go to the streets, they get the excuse to actually oppress us, to actually, you know, use brutality against us. Now we're choosing to be home. We're choosing to be silent. Now they don't know what to do. They are confused. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comment section below. Let's keep the conversation going. I'm your presenter, Joel Mugisha. If you're new, kindly consider subscribing. Share this video with your family and friends, and don't forget to hit that like button. As always, see you on the next episode.